Might as well scrub my eyes and shave my tongue. Kill or be killed. Survival of the fittest. I've actually grown to appreciate proximity work.
I don't give a...
The movie commences with a man residing in an unoccupied Parisian room for 2 days, engrossed in observing a building across the street. Termed as the killer, he's a seasoned hitman patiently anticipating his elusive target. The challenge lies in not knowing when the target will appear, compelling him to vigilantly monitor the location. Amidst this wait, the killer engages in yoga, ventures out for sustenance, and receives a call from Hodges, the individual who enlisted his services. Hodges imparts uncertain information about the target potentially showing up in 2 days, though other days remain plausible. Frustration mounts within the killer due to the ambiguous details, leading to him vehemently smashing his phone. Returning to the vacant building, he remains watchful over the anticipated target's destination, reminding himself not to let emotions hinder success. Renowned for discreetly documenting his numerous kills, the killer, though accomplished, maintains an enigmatic record. One night, while adjusting his gun, an unexpected visitor approaches the door. Swiftly aiming his weapon, the killer is relieved as the individual decides against entering, opting instead to dispose of trash before departing. Later on, the assassin attempts to take a brief rest, yet the anticipation for the target keeps him alert. To combat drowsiness, he sets his watch to beep every 5 minutes. When he discerns indications of the target's imminent arrival, evidenced by a servant preparing a room, the killer readies his equipment, including his rifle. Spotting the target, an elderly businessman with numerous international companies, accompanied by a female entertainer, the killer takes aim. However, his hand trembles, resulting in an accidental shot that hits the entertainer. Faced with this mistake, the killer swiftly packs up his tools and vacates the vacant building. Escaping on a motorcycle, he disposes of evidence in the sewer and a parked garbage truck before reaching a bridge. Dismounting the motorcycle, he crosses the bridge, discarding his helmet. Meanwhile, security personnel at the target's location investigate the incident, with even the police monitoring the airport, delaying the killer's immediate departure from France. Forced to create a false identity, he purchases a flight ticket to leave the country. During this wait, Hodges, displeased with the botched mission, angrily contacts the killer. Hodges conveyed that completing the assignment was imperative, warning the killer of severe repercussions. Unease settled upon the killer during the flight, as an unfamiliar individual continuously observed him. Upon reaching a transit airport, the realization dawned that the peculiar observer persisted. Opting for caution, the killer chose to spend the night in an airport hotel, vigilantly monitoring the observer. Fortunately, no untoward actions transpired, allowing the killer to board another flight bound for the Dominican Republic, his chosen refuge. Upon arriving, he hastily drove to Magdala's countryside residence, utilizing his preferred vehicle. Despite a lengthy journey, he reached her gate, only to notice peculiar footprints and discarded cigarette butts, raising concern. Apprehensive about potential issues, he armed himself and stealthily entered her house. The disarray in the living room, coupled with a bloodstain, heightened his anxiety, yet Magdala was nowhere to be found. Without delay, he rushed her to the hospital, confirming his suspicions as Magdala lay critically injured in intensive care. Subsequently, the killer sought information from Marcus, a close acquaintance of Magdala. Marcus disclosed that 2 strangers, a robust man and a slender woman, arrived at their residence in a taxi, launching a violent assault on Magdala. Enraged, the killer vehemently assured Marcus that such an ordeal would not befall Magdala again. Subsequently, when Magdala regained consciousness, she confided in the killer, affirming her resilience in not divulging his true identity despite the attacker's attempts to coerce her. Distraught by the incident involving his girlfriend, the killer, without hesitation, returned home to retrieve his concealed weapons from the backyard. The following morning, he initiated an investigation into the assailants, starting with the taxi company that potentially transported them. Employing intimidation tactics, he coerced the frightened owner into divulging information about the taxi driver responsible for taking the attackers to Magdala's location. The owner, gripped by fear, revealed that a taxi driver named Leo Rodriguez had been involved. The next day, the killer, who had been vigilant and patient, located Leo awaiting passengers by the roadside. Assuming the guise of a passenger in need of a ride, the killer discreetly readied his weapon in the passenger seat. In a quiet moment, while holding Leo at gunpoint, the killer inquired about the 2 passengers Leo had taken to a secluded area near the woods, aligning with Marcus's account. Terrified, Leo provided details about the appearance of the two individuals, corroborating Marcus's description, ensuring the killer maintained the secrecy of his criminal activities. Opting for a decisive action, the killer chose to eliminate Leo before embarking on a mission to locate those responsible for harming his girlfriend. Following this, he flew to New Orleans to rendezvous with Hodges. In the city, he strategically rented a van to outsmart Hodges' office security. Before heading to Hodges' office, the killer visited his storage facility, retrieving forged IDs, including a fake license plate, essential for evading law enforcement. Acquiring necessary tools to masquerade as a recycling worker, he aimed to seamlessly infiltrate Hodges' office. Successfully bypassing any complications, the killer entered Hodges' office, brandishing his weapon at Hodges' secretary, Dolores. Frightened and held hostage, Dolores guided the killer into Hodges' inner sanctum. There, the contract killer secured Hodges in his chair, while Dolores remained confined in the bathroom. Initiating inquiries about the assault on Magdala, the killer pressed Hodges for information. Hodges, distancing himself from the attack, reminded the killer that it transpired due to the incomplete mission in Paris. This revelation fueled the killer's fury, prompting him to obliterate Hodges' laptop containing records of their past missions. Employing a tool he had brought, the killer inflicted harm on Hodges in an attempt to extract information about the assailants of Magdala. Unfortunately, before the killer could glean the desired details, Hodges, already grievously injured from a prior assault, proved unable to provide the information sought. Recognizing Hodges' dire condition, the killer conversed with Dolores, who, in exchange for revealing the culprits, requested her demise to appear accidental, ensuring life insurance for her child. The killer agreed, disposing of Hodges' body in a sizable trash bin and transporting it to Dolores' residence. At Dolores' house, she disclosed the location of comprehensive information about the contract killers Hodges had enlisted, including those responsible for harming Magdala. Additionally, she revealed the identity of the primary client, the one who engaged the killer through Hodges to eliminate the elderly man in Paris. Armed with this knowledge, the killer orchestrated Dolores' demise, making it seem like a staircase accident by subtly manipulating her descent that night. Subsequently, the killer returned to his storage facility to dismember Hodges' body. Taking a ferry, he disposed of certain body parts into the sea and buried the remaining fragments to thwart any police investigation. The following day, the killer journeyed to Florida to confront one of the assailants who attacked Magdala, a formidable individual known as the Brute. Discovering the Brute's residence, the killer observed him strolling with friends, accompanied by a pit bull. Concerned that the dog could disrupt his plans, the killer purchased meat infused with sleeping pills for the canine. Subsequently, he trailed the Brute and his companions to a bar. Upon their return home, the killer provided the drugged meat to the dog. However, the plan faltered as the Brute sensed he was being targeted, leading to a confrontation. Leveraging his extensive experience, the killer eventually overcame the Brute, shooting him dead. Startled by the gunshot, the dog attempted to pursue the killer, who successfully restrained the animal and incinerated the Brute's residence to eliminate any traces of the murder. On a different occasion, the killer journeyed to New York to confront another assailant of Magdala, known as the Expert. Observing her from a vehicle, he patiently awaited her departure from her residence. Upon spotting her entering a taxi hours later, he tailed her and discovered she was heading to an upscale restaurant. Inside, the killer approached the Expert, who discerned his intent. Despite her realization, she invited him to share a meal, assuring him of its delectable nature. However, wary of potential poisoning, the killer declined the offer. Persuading her to depart the restaurant, they reached a nearby park where the killer shot her. Several days later, he returned to Paris to confront the individual who engaged his services. Suspecting collaboration between this person and Hodges to impart a lesson, the killer trailed the old client to an upscale apartment. Hindered by a locked door, he resorted to ordering a fake key online to create a duplicate. While awaiting the key, he camouflaged his intentions by feigning interest in a gym membership in the building and procuring illegal weaponry from the criminal underground. Armed with the fake key the next morning, the killer used a worker's ID card to replicate it on the key panel, gaining access to the client's apartment. Presenting his contract killer card, the killer perplexed the client, who eventually realized he was the one Hodges had hired. Fearing repercussions, the client admitted Hodges had coerced him into an extra $150,000 payment due to the Paris mission's failure. Attempting to extract information about the attack on Magdala, the killer sensed the client's confusion and concluded he was not implicated in harming his girlfriend, opting against taking his life. Uncovering that Hodges orchestrated the assault on Magdala, the movie concludes with the killer returning to the Dominican Republic. There, he reunites with his recovering girlfriend, and together, they find happiness and tranquility, having achieved retribution against those who harmed her. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell if you want to watch more videos like this. Thank you for watching and see you again soon. Take care.
Trust,
Are
no.
we there yet? Little further?